If you love liberty, declare your independence by signing the Shire Society Declaration at shiresociety.com.
They work.
This is a pretty diverse group of people up here. Pretty excited about this. I think that, I got this one. I think that someone tweeted, I can't remember whether it was on the Porcfest website, but they mentioned like, the debate, Tone Vays versus 4 people on the panel. And I'm like, is that really how that
I know, I was like ready.
And then he came up before and he was like, I'm ready for this debate. You know, and I'm like, oh, no, we're talking about Bitcoin, the next 10 years, the journey, the growth, what we can expect. We have diverse opinions for a reason, so that we can show, you know, what a bunch of people with very different backgrounds think is going to happen, which I think is going to be a really interesting conversation. If there are pyrotechnics, I won't stop it, but I may try to like ease it. I don't want this to devolve into like a Twitter feud. I've seen a lot of that, but I think this is going to be a great discussion here. So I'll go ahead and introduce my panelists. My name is Naomi Brockwell. I'm a producer for John Stossel, and I also have a tech show that I run that mainly focuses on blockchain tech. We have Jeffrey Tucker. He is from AIER, and actually we have a bunch of people representing AIER today, which I'm pretty excited about. Welcome. We have Tone Vays. He is a very well-known YouTuber, content creator, and analyst. Chris Pacia, he's the lead back-end developer of OpenBazaar and a Bitcoin Cash developer. Vin Armani, who's the CTO of Cointext. And Yury Polozov, who is a cybersecurity expert. Please give them a very warm welcome. And Jeffrey, did I say your title is Director of Content at AIE?
Yes, that's right. Can we have a special round of applause for everybody with a bow tie here?
Yeah, absolutely. Jeffrey's already joined his alliances in this battle. So we're talking about Bitcoin the next 10 years. And in order to talk about the next 10 years, I thought we should backtrack and talk about the previous 10 years. So we just celebrated Bitcoin's 10th anniversary, which was pretty exciting. I hope you all had some cake to celebrate that. And so to start off with, I just wanted to talk to each of you and just say, you know, where we've come from and talk about the growth of the last 10 years. And did you expect that this was going to happen? So let's just start off by talking about what you think are the biggest changes that you've seen and whether or not these are changes that you've expected in the crypto ecosystem. Jeffrey, did you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I'll just say that I never believed that magic internet money was possible, but it clearly is. I was a grave skeptic when the white paper was first sent to me. I got an email in September of 2010 from an MIT graduate student named Satoshi. But he was an MIT graduate student, and he's like, look at this white paper. I read it, I couldn't understand it, unlike Tone, who understands everything. And but I didn't believe it, and it took me basically 2 years to come around and goes, oh my God, you know, the reason this stuff failed in the past is because it was centralized, there's always some problem. Bitcoin brought it all together. That changed my world, because I realized that money is a technology, it can be part of the market, it can evolve, it can change, and we're not gonna be stuck with the nation state money forever. And I tell you, like for me personally, because I didn't believe it was possible, I became the ultimate humble guy. After that, and I'm so humble. But I began to realize that I didn't know anything about money, and I became a student all over again. My own position on this now is we're 10 years in, we've just barely begun. We don't know if there's going to be a winner, what it is. I think the process is going to continue. I think the dollar's going to die. Actually, within the next 5 years as a world reserve currency.
Well, let's talk about our predictions in a second.
Yeah.
I want to look
So anyway, let me just say
start.
that Bitcoin changed my life. I'll just leave it at that.
Chris, what do you think is the your biggest change that you've seen in the last 10 years in the crypto ecosystem?
I don't know if we have change in particular, but just it's amazing how much Bitcoin has sort of penetrated everything. I mean, just almost everyone has heard of Bitcoin. I mean, we're literally just talking about Facebook launching their own cryptocurrency, which is a direct result of Bitcoin bringing this concept mainstream. And I think that's pretty unbelievable. Bitcoin being worth $10,000 is kind of, I wouldn't have thought that that would have happened. A little of mixed feelings about that too, because for it being $10,000, we don't have the usage that we'd like to see, at least in terms of it being used in trade and commerce and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't know, just the ubiquitousness that Bitcoin has become over that time is pretty amazing.
Yury, what are your thoughts?
So I'm not Satoshi, so I was not following it from the beginning, but when I learned about it 7 years ago...
We can lay that to rest. He's not Satoshi. Tick him, cross him off your list there.
It was amazing technology, and 6 years ago it was amazing to see, for example, here in Keene, New Hampshire, how people develop this real case use, like paying for rent, paying for services, opening businesses that accept Bitcoins. So maybe I was hoping it will grow faster and that businesses will be more stable. We saw like people were building Bitcoin vending machines here in New Hampshire, but that business left for Europe. Some businesses closed, so that's something I should have expected, but I have not. Maybe I thought that government would be more fighting harder, and we see governments pretty hard on Bitcoins in Russia, where I'm originally from, or in China. Here we saw quite a few problems, but not as much as we could have expected.
Vin.
So I think when we're talking about the last 10 years, it's kind of piggyback on Chris with this last week, Facebook coming out and basically jumping onto the bandwagon. 10 years is not a long time when we consider that the previous financial paradigm is 900 years old. And in 10 years, we're already at a point where the meme of, sort of displacing that old paradigm is in the minds of some of the most powerful people in the world. It's a very short period of time, and so talking about the next 10 years of Bitcoin, we really should imagine that it's going to be something probably more significant than we expect.
What about you, Tone?
Yeah, so I don't really have any complaints. I'm very happy with where Bitcoin is today. I joined the ecosystem in early 2013. I've heard about it in 2011. It took me a little while to actually jump on board, but I think it evolved amazingly well over this 10 years. I'm very, very happy with it. But I was ready for the debate. I have my shitcoin shirt. I'm wearing it. But I have to say what disappointed me over the last 5 years, and when I joined the ecosystem, it was 2013. And yeah, some old coins were already around, like Litecoin, and I remember Namecoin and like Peercoin, and a lot of them are now disappeared, Aurora Coin. But what I am disappointed with is when I joined the ecosystem, everyone was on the same page. It was like all these other little old coins, they're just there, on the side, but everyone was kind of unified to get rid of the fiat system. And now all I see is people wanting to print their own money and just get rich on their own. And it's fractured the community a lot because everyone wants their own money to succeed. And that's not what a protocol is. So I've been really disappointed with the community. And almost I would say 8 out of 10 people I looked up to when I joined the community and listened to them, I no longer want to hear anything they have to say.
So just so that you know, who is not familiar with every gentleman on this stage? Okay. So it is a bit of a divided camp, and crypto in general is a pretty divided space, and it's sort of split between people who see value in other coins and people who only see value in Bitcoin. So we'll delve into that a little bit in this discussion as well. Actually, I have a follow-up question for Jeffrey. No, but go ahead with yours, and then we'll go head back.
So you can summarize Tone's position as Bitcoin's the greatest thing ever and everything else sucks. So if you know that, you don't have to listen to a word he says.
Jeffrey!
No, I'm sorry. I mean, it's we love you, Tone. We love you. I love you. But I mean, it's tedious. We're living in a world of competition now. Sorry. But money is a technology. It's going to evolve. Things are going to change, and you can't dictate the outcome. Bitcoin in 2017 became basically unusable for regular transactions. Don't dispute me on that, because it's just true. Even though there's more transactions than ever, they're very expensive, very slow. That's because of the scaling problem. I don't want to turn this panel into a big scaling debate. I think that would be boring.
That's exactly what you just did.
No, I just don't. I just don't. Because it's a point of discussion. We now have choice in currency, and we now have brought market forces to the topic of money, which I never believed would happen in my lifetime. I think that's a good thing.
The issue of competition is definitely interesting because, I mean, a lot of people came into crypto because they wanted to see competition in money. Governments have a monopoly on the money supply for a really long time. We've seen no innovation. Finally, someone comes along and says, here's a money that can't be shut down, and that's exciting. But there is this thought that, you know, there should be competition, but only as far as Bitcoin. No other competition apart from that, which is an interesting perspective, but I mean, we'll go into that in a second, but let me do some follow-up questions for each of you. Tone, I'll start with you this time. So looking at Bitcoin, and Chris, you sort of brought this up, and I don't know whether I'm also herding this into a scaling debate, which I don't want to do, but Chris sort of brought up how Bitcoin really isn't being used as much as people expected in terms of everyday transactions. Has that been your experience? Like, you know, looking at when you first got involved in this space, and it was starting to get picked up by merchants. You're seeing, you know, cafes accepted, ATMs, you know, start to be introduced, and then we sort of saw that go down. Did you expect that that was something that was going to happen, and do you foresee that, you know, merchant adoption is going to be something that we will see for Bitcoin?
I really thought that merchant adoption was going to be something, because I started a business in early 2014. It was a brick and mortar, and I was probably the second or third business in New Jersey to put up a sign that says, you know, we accept Bitcoin, and no one ever paid. And the lesson that you learn is that you can't just keep retraining your staff to accept Bitcoin, and it's just not cost effective. So I learned my lesson as a business owner that people aren't really going to be spending it because not a lot of people have it. And it's a you know, it's an up and down thing. Like when Bitcoin starts to go up in price, people want to spend it, people want to get businesses to accept it, but then, you know, Bitcoin starts to drop and not enough people accept it, and like business owners, it's hard to keep retraining your staff. I mean, it'll eventually come, but most likely, the business will not know they're even accepting Bitcoin. They'll just have it on their point of sale machine, and that's where it's probably headed. My problem with that system is that unless the business itself understands Bitcoin, they shouldn't be accepting it. I will never ever pay with my Bitcoin to a business that doesn't hold the Bitcoin. Like, I think, oh, why would I want to sell the Bitcoin on the open market? Why do I want to drop the price of my Bitcoin? So it'll eventually come when people realize that the reason to accept Bitcoin is to try to hold the Bitcoin, or pay your employees in Bitcoin, or try to pay your suppliers in Bitcoin. If a business like Expedia is going to accept Bitcoin only to immediately sell it for their local fiat, I don't want them. I don't want them accepting Bitcoin. They're not helping the ecosystem at all. They're only hurting it.
Do you think that there could be help in there because, you know, it's exposing more people to it, having like a big label on Overstock that says we accept Bitcoin? It helps people know about it.
No, they're only helping early Bitcoin adopters to liquidate their Bitcoin in an easier way. I don't see them helping the ecosystem. The only way to help the ecosystem of Bitcoin is to create a circle so that the Bitcoin actually goes around from person to person, not just gets sold on the open market and the business doesn't even know.
Doesn't that get it to person to person if it's because someone's buying that?
No, it just goes to an exchange. Someone's buying it for speculative purposes as a trader, but not for commerce. And I mean, I'm a trader. I worked on Wall Street. People like me were demonized. And I'll be the first to admit, I'm sorry, trading is not a use case. It's a way to make money. It's a way to make a living. It's a way to speculate. It's a way to have fun. It's a casino. A casino is not really benefiting society all that much. Trading is not really benefiting society all that much. It is necessary to create a market. It is necessary to create a price for an asset. But if you really want Bitcoin to succeed, you need an economic circle where the merchant accepting the Bitcoin actually cares about it.
Chris, you had something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I'm actually happy Tone made that last point. I don't know I've ever heard Tone say that, and that's a point that I think you should take back to the rest of your community too, because I hear a lot of people in your community that just seem to have the opinion that it can just be a speculative trading asset and nothing else. So I mean, just preaching that message I think would do a lot of good. But I mean, to the other point of like, you know, what if the merchant sells it and cashes out? I think my view, and I think the view that a lot of people had very early on, is we need to build a bridge to get from nobody using Bitcoin to everyone using Bitcoin for everything, and that bridge potentially is people buy some Bitcoin for dollars, spend it at a merchant, and then cash it out, and then the merchant cashes it out to fiat. That's obviously not ideal, but if you get enough people taking Bitcoin at that point, eventually you can just say, well, why do I have to cash it out for dollars when my supplier also takes Bitcoin and I can just pay my supplier with it? So to Tone's point, I just kind of view that as sort of a bridge to get where we want to go. And without that bridge, I'm not really sure how we get there.
Jeff, sorry.
Just
Jeff and
really quickly, what Tone said is empirically correct. It's been the strangest thing that as the price has gone up, we've seen more people use Bitcoin over the last 10 years, right? I mean, like PayPal reports this, that the higher the price goes, the more willingness people have. Do we have any economists in the room? Oh. Huh. Oh, okay.
Oh, look at that gentleman from AIER. Sorry, Jeff, we keep going.
So this is the opposite of what you would expect, right? Under deflation, people tend to hold their currency more. Under inflation, they tend to spend. In the Bitcoin ecosphere, we've seen exactly the opposite. So I've been waiting now for a very long time to see this flip in the other direction. And I think in the past, it's been because, you know, the original gangsters were so astonished to see Bitcoin, you know, become $350, $1,000, $5,000. They're like, this is like free money, I might as well spend it, right? But now we're starting to see a change, and people are starting to expect the old-fashioned, you know, to the moon mentality is coming back now, and people are going to start holding Bitcoin more and more as we go forward. So we could actually see use and adoption, actually. In other words, Gresham's law is going to start to kick in. So we could start seeing less adoption in the future than even now. Precisely because Bitcoin is becoming more valuable relative to goods and services, and people are expecting it's going to get ever more valuable. It's just basic economics.
No, I think people are going to be spending Bitcoin. Like, I'm dying to spend my Bitcoin right now. I think it's gone up too far, too fast, and I'm very happy to spend it right now. I'm trying to upgrade all my tech equipment right now.
I mean,
you see how it's connected to psychology. Your expectations determine your liquidity preferences, basically.
I also wonder how much like government intervention stops people from wanting to spend money, because if every purchase is a capital gains tax, so do you really want to spend it when it's up there? Like, it's so much more hassle than people realized at the outset. And I don't think, I mean, I'm sure everyone expected over the last 10 years government would slowly get more and more involved, but I think it was in ways that we probably didn't quite foresee. You know, the capital gains expenditure, I think, is a big reason why a lot of people don't spend it. But Vin, you were going to add something.
Yeah, it's crazy to me when I hear the demonization of exchanges, which seems to come from a lot of camps, while at the same time saying that they want to see businesses taking Bitcoin and paying their employees out in Bitcoin. You're not going to be able to pay your employees out in Bitcoin if those employees can't very quickly convert it into fiat for the things that they need to use on a daily basis. So I take my full income in Bitcoin. If I was not able to easily convert that into fiat to pay for the things, to pay for my water bill, you know what I mean? To pay the mortgage. If that was not available, these exchanges have been for all the demonization that people want to do, and yes, that does mean that you're going to have speculation that takes place. Were they not there, there would not be this bridge. We would not have the adoption. And so you don't get to have it both ways, Tone. You don't get to say, I want to see these businesses paying their employees, and then in the same breath say, well, but I don't like the fact that these exchanges are making it easy to convert into other currencies. It doesn't work.
What is your preferred off-ramp? Maybe you could just share that with everybody.
I love Uphold, actually. I've been Uphold. Yeah,
What?
the company.
Explain
Uphold.
that.
Are you talking about what's my preferred fiat off-ramp?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the company or the currency?
No, from crypto. How do you move from crypto to fiat?
So, I mean, I've got, so my company has several liquidity partners, but I personally use a company called Uphold. So I don't know if any people know that exchange, but it's
Oh, wait a minute. I'm not demonizing the exchanges. I'm demonizing the business that has no intention of even offering their employees the option of taking a salary in Bitcoin, and the business is just opportunistic to accept Bitcoin to immediately sell it as a person pays.
But you're putting the cart before the horse here, dude, because if you don't have enough Bitcoin to pay an employee in their whole entire salary in Bitcoin, like, you gotta get there first, bro. You gotta have the reserves before you can pay out of the reserves to actually pay your
Doesn't have
employee.
to be a whole, just offer your employees the option to take some of their salary in Bitcoin if your business is gonna accept Bitcoin.
And then maybe we will have a real use case for Gresham laws, because originally this law is applicable if, for example, salary is paid both in Federal Reserve notes and in Bitcoins, and taxes could be paid, and government requires you to pay, you can choose between two currencies, then people will choose to keep good currency for themselves. But right now, we are not yet in situation when Bitcoin should be abide by Gresham law. Maybe in future we will, like there are some legislations around different states to pay some taxes in Bitcoins. There was some bill in New Hampshire, but right now that law is not quite applicable. So I hope in next 10 years economists will actually learn how it all works. Like all these discussions if Bitcoin have intrinsic value, and like what we discussed now, if like selling Bitcoin actually helps it or hurts it.
I just want to say, quickly comment on something you said. This is like the one place where I can actually say this and enjoy it. We're at Porcfest. I think everyone here, if you have Bitcoin, you can be creative enough to avoid the capital gains problem.
Also, we're not advocating this, as this is going to be playing on my YouTube channel. Definitely make sure that you dot all the I's and cross all the T's. So let's move on to that. Let's use that as a segue to talking about government intervention in crypto. Over the last 10 years, we've seen them dismiss it, ignore it, slowly move in, and now retroactively hurting businesses that were throwing this stuff around in like 2011. You have court cases now where people are saying, oh, in 2011, when no one knew anything about Bitcoin, no one knew whether the government was going to be enacting these laws, no one knew whether it was an asset or a currency. They were, using this, and now they're being targeted by the IRS and the SEC and all of these government agencies. So let's talk about the government intervention that we've seen over the last 10 years and where we think that's going to go. Is this going to get to a stage where the government might actually end up just banning this and say, we know that it can't be stopped, there'll always be fringe cases where people use it, but do you think that they could get so threatened by this that they enact a total ban? We've seen it in other countries. I'm wondering whether we think that's going to happen in the US, for example. Jeffrey, you want to start?
So I think it's important that everybody here is convinced that money can be magic internet money and global and created out of a protocol and everything. And we're like, oh yeah, let's chill with that. The mainstream does not understand this and is not convinced of this at all. And you can see this from Zuckerberg's announcement the other day that he's creating a Facebook stablecoin. And the New York Times this morning was just hilarious. There's an article that said, what the hell is with this guy? He thinks that he can create a money that's for the world? Wait, nobody gave him permission to do this. Does he not know that currency and commerce generally is to be controlled by the nation state? and our regulators, appointed by our politicians for whom we vote, we the people have to control. Not private monopolies and big companies creating money for the world. This has got to be stopped. This was in the New York Times this morning. And for us in this room, it's hilarious because we've already crossed that bridge. We know, but the future is not money created by the nation state. We're already there. But for the mainstream of America and mainstream opinion, they're nowhere near this. But that's why I think that the Facebook stablecoin is actually really important for us, because that's going to be the thing. It's going to be more targeted than Bitcoin. It's like what Zuckerberg is doing is taking a lot of fire for what would otherwise be go to the crypto community. I mean, frankly, the New York Times and so on, all the mainstream voices out there dismiss crypto, even to this day. Even though we're at a $300 billion market cap, they still think it's like a big phony baloney. They don't consider Facebook to be a phony baloney. So it's going to be important. I think it's actually beneficial for us.
Phony baloney. I love the way it's big, Jeffrey. So yeah, just on that point, before I go to you, Chris, like I also wonder whether Facebook being targeted at the moment is because it's centralized. And I wonder if the government sort of not quite going out and banning it is because they recognize that they don't have the ability to stop Bitcoin, but they do have the ability to shut down a central organization. What are your thoughts there, Chris?
Yeah, I'll give my thoughts on that in a sec, but just for the prior, it might be interesting to get the thoughts of people on the panel too, but you know, you have the, as far as regulation goes, you kind of have the Uber model where you grow so big by the time the government realizes what hit them, that it's too popular to outright ban. And I don't know if I have an opinion. I'm kind of on the fence as to whether Bitcoin has reached that point or not. But that might be interesting to get other people's thoughts on whether or not that's too big to ban or not. And then I do have an answer to your question too.
So yeah, I think that's the biggest part of this, and maybe I think it's the most important thing that hopefully we could take away from this is perhaps an idea that we need to grow quickly, a lot faster than we are, whatever that takes, because we're talking about money, and already the financial influence of those people who are in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is growing, and that we should be starting in places like New Hampshire and spreading out, like we should be getting out in front of this with the money, regulatory capture on our side, and use against the banks what they've been using against all of us, and Bitcoin's the opportunity to do that. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I agree that this Facebook coin Calibra Libra that was announced just a couple days ago in some final shape, it will be a big deal, and it's not only Facebook coin, it's also Uber coin, Lyft coin, MasterCard coin, and so on. Returning to previous questions, I think that government regulations are probably one of the biggest risks for your cryptocurrency investments. And it could be a total ban, but I think it's unlikely in the next 10 years. But it doesn't have to be a total ban. Like, for example, I left Russia by that time, but in Russia it was not total ban. It was just some recommendation that companies using cryptocurrencies might be involved in some money laundering, and just that recommendation of some central bank or similar authority made pretty much all businesses that started to accept cryptocurrencies in Russia to stop it. So some partial ban, it's probably will be happening, and it's a big risk to keep in mind.
I am expecting a total ban. I always did. From the first moment I bought my first piece of a Bitcoin in 2013, I did it in cash. To this day, I have never used my Bitcoin in connection with my government identity. I have never bought from Purse.io. I have never ordered anything to my actual address. I have never bought anything with my Bitcoin that required anything more than an email address, because I am expecting governments to be very hostile towards Bitcoin. I hope I'm wrong, but I will be I'm being cautious. Basically, I want to make sure that the government has a real challenge to connect me to any Bitcoin activity, because I think they will get hostile. Do I think they will lose? Yes. Do I think they will make it difficult for us? Yes. So that I remain nervous to this day of the situation, and I think it's coming because they're not going to walk away from their fiat currency so quickly. Now, we can talk about the Facebook situation all day. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I don't expect every single company in the world to start creating their own currency. I think that's ridiculous. I think Facebook is about to have a serious problem with the US government and every other government explaining to them how their currency is actually totally centralized and it's not a threat to their actual national currencies, but they described their currency as a threat to the national currencies when it's not. It's way more compliant to the national currencies. It's not competing with Bitcoin, but we'll see what happens there, and we'll see where it goes.
Can I ask a question about Facebook coin? My apologies. It's a stable coin backed by an asset reserve of some sort. Does anybody know what is in that reserve besides dollars? Yes, but anything else?
They have not specified what those asset reserves are. My guess is it'll be other fiat currencies and like bank deposits. What I think it should be is maybe some fiat currencies, but to be honest, I think that it should be, I think some of the best currency, I mean, I've been one of the guys that's been preaching that the stock market and private equity of companies is a safe haven for your assets. So if I was Facebook, I would put Bitcoin in that basket. I would put a piece of the S&P 500 in that basket and other things, and gold in that basket, along with fiat currencies. I would make that a really diverse portfolio to back their stable coin.
The one thing we do know about this is that these are interest-bearing accounts that they're in, because the secondary coin that they're giving to all of the Libra investment token is all based on the fact that the people who are getting those, this consortium of other Uber, and I think Andreessen Horowitz is in there, and some other companies, Visa, that they're all going to be earning interest based on these. So these are, it's probably a Swiss bank account with just fiat.
Well, I think they did say dollar, euro, yen, and some other ones are going to consider. I think they didn't give the quantities, but they alluded to that, and like treasury bills, like short-term government securities. Yeah. I think by a vote of their membership or something.
Like, unless Facebook, unless they have a decent, like in that basket that underlines their currency, unless they have a decent fraction of that is not controlled by governments, there is nothing innovative there. There is nothing new there. If they're not going to put Bitcoin or stocks of companies in there, they might as well just have the US dollar. It will be more stable than whatever the hell else they add to it.
And one thing that I would add to that is what's innovative about this and what excites me. I mean, I'm not that excited. I think that the world of Facebook coin is just another realm for people to have their finances tracked. I wouldn't encourage anyone to use it. It's going to be no different from traditional finance in that regard. But what I do think is interesting and what is different is that it's going to be an international currency. And I think that's huge.
It's the payment system. I mean, it's the payment network. Blockchain. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. So the way their network works, and this maybe is getting back to answering Naomi's question, it does have these centralized choke points. So they have their reserve where they hold the coins, that's centralized. And, obviously the backing by dollars and all of that. But the network actually, and the validation of transactions is also centralized. But the moving of coins is still being done in like a peer-to-peer network similar to Bitcoin, where anyone is capable of creating an address without their approval, without the approval of Facebook or any of these companies, and sending money without the approval of any of these companies. Now, obviously, because they're the ones validating the transactions, they could conceivably turn off the validation for your transactions, but its underlying architecture is a little bit Bitcoin-like under the hood in that sense. And what will be interesting is how much Facebook kind of insists on like that's not negotiable in front of the regulators. Because right now, one of the ways we can skirt around AML KYC is like if you only use Bitcoin and you don't cash out from Bitcoin to dollars, you never get hit with the AML KYC, right? If you stay in the network. And Facebook's saying, well, our network's the same way, that we only need AML KYC to get from dollars into Libra, but once you're in Libra, it's this open network where anyone can transact and there's no AML KYC. And the regulators are, wait a second, you're going to be transacting in a token partially backed by the US dollar without AML KYC. Like their heads are going to explode. And it'll be interesting to see how much Facebook says this is not negotiable, that we're not going to give in on this particular issue. I mean,
they've been so good standing up to government so far.
But we have seen other companies like Apple has really been like non-negotiable on like phone encryption and stuff like that. So I guess it's a wait and see.
Yeah, but Facebook itself is a better AML KYC than any government, right? Like Facebook knows everything about you, right? Like Facebook's AML KYC is better than any government. I just want to just quickly. So Facebook's coin. So they have 3 things that they can innovate on, and they're only going to use one of them, right? So Bitcoin is censorship resistant, unconfiscatable, decentralized. Facebook will not do that. So that's out, right? That's the one thing, they just can't do it. What Bitcoin did between 2009 and 2011 is not replicatable. This is also why I think all old coins will die due to economics, not because I want them to die. Economically, they will. They will because it's not replicatable. The decentralization, Facebook can't build it. You can't just build decentralization. It has to naturally happen. So Facebook cannot compete in the unconfiscatable, censorship-resistant value transfer. So there's 2 other things that Facebook could do. One, it could back their currency by something that is unconfiscatable and is censorship-resistant. I don't believe they're going to do that. They're not going to add Bitcoin into that basket, okay? So therefore, on the second layer, they're not going to do anything innovative either. The one thing that Facebook can do is help the developing world because they are the connector. People in the Philippines are communicating with people in Thailand, and they can just send Facebook coin to each other. So Facebook could help the developing world with a shitty currency. With Facebook currency, if it's mostly US dollar, it helps them a lot. So they can't do it. The risk that Facebook takes is if a country like the Philippines doesn't like the fact that half of their population is no longer using their own currency, they're gonna ban Facebook, the way Uber gets banned in half the world. So that's a risk that Facebook takes.
There is another innovation associated with Facebook Libra, and that is the destruction of central banking, okay? So this is actually not an insignificant point. Just reflect for a moment on what central banking was. The idea is that within the geography of a nation state, all money would port through a regulated banking system, and all those banks would be centralized in a single bank that would process all the payments and manage all the payments, and then manage the currency in a kind of a Soviet-like way to bring about certain results, whether it's smoothing out business cycles or keeping inflation tamed, but basically is macroeconomic management. That whole model, which sucks and never worked anyway, but it's intellectually contingent upon a monopoly of currency. If you come up with a new currency that is not part of the nation state, not part of the central banking network, and lives outside that system, you have smashed that monopoly. Like, it doesn't mean that it has to go, the central bank has to go away. It means that the monopoly is ended, and that, in effect, eliminates the entire rationale for the central bank. And let's not forget, the central bank is the thing that gave us massive government debts, loss of liberty, tyranny, war, massive death, and so on and so on. So this is not an insignificant point.
Let me just play devil's advocate here for a second, Jeffrey. So we have an organization that is notorious for spying on people, notorious for saying, yes, fine, when the government says, give us access to this data on these people that you've collected. And now we have all of these hearings where the head of this organization says, yes, I believe the government should have control over Facebook. I think it should be broken up, etc. What is the likelihood that this is this Trojan horse, that this team puts out this thing that says, yes, we aim to one day become decentralized, decentralized. We can't get there yet because of scaling, etc. Let me follow the thought through. Then the idea is the government comes in with this hearing saying, okay, well maybe we'll allow Facebook if it's primarily backed by the US dollar. What you've then created is a worldwide US dollar that everyone's going to be used. They've made the US dollar the global currency of the world.
It already is a global currency. I think it's exactly the opposite. It is a Trojan horse, but what's inside that horse is a competitive currency. It's not the U.S. government.
Even if it's like primarily backed by U.S. Treasury bonds and the U.S. dollar.
Look, the U.S. dollar is not going to be the world reserve currency in 5 years. It's going down. So I don't worry about that.
You don't think that this could be a pushback, their way of saying, well, let's try and keep a piece of this pie?
No, Facebook is a business. They care about Facebook more than the U.S. government.
The important part there is that what is the business that Facebook is in? And the business that Facebook is in is, as you say, getting all of our data. So already they know what we're interested in looking at and potentially buying, but to go all the way to the full panopticon of every piece of economic activity, I don't think that's helping the third world. Like, I think that's turning the third world into slaves, really. Because if you've got everybody's economic activity, political dissidents are out, you're going to know who's backing, the opposition. You have an insane amount of control, and it's something that's the level that we should be thinking about it on. I don't think it's a Trojan horse for the U.S. In that way, I totally agree with Jeffrey that if anything, it's potentially we're seeing the new state regime, which is going to come from technocratic corporate background that could supplant this old model. This is potentially the Trojan horse for that. So
interesting. So the next 10 years, you see things like Facebook Coin still being around, but perhaps being like a tool of these entities. Jeffrey sees it as the next 10 years.
The thing is that you can look at how annoyed people are by Facebook. Like 10 years ago, everybody loved Facebook. Now, most everybody thinks it sucks. Okay, I think the same thing is going to happen with Libra. It's going to be an issue like, wow, I don't have to use a dollar. This is really fast, it's really cool, it's really cheap. Wait, is there anything else that's like that? Oh, here's the crypto market. I think it's going to onboard new people to crypto and give us, I'm sorry to say it, some legitimacy that we've lacked.
So let's look forward to the next 10 years, and just going on that and what you initially spoke of today, Jeffrey, you were talking about people's changing perception of money, and that's also what you're talking about here. Once you get people thinking differently about money, then you show them what the options are. Perhaps they'll come around. Do you see in the next 10 years people will?
Yeah, so Hayek writes about this, and just how we've lacked a market in the production of money. We don't even know what that looks like and what that feels like. We've just always assumed that government made money, just like, if the government made tennis shoes, we think there was just one tennis shoe or one shoe, and suddenly it's like the new guy shows up and says, no, there's other kinds of cool shoes. And that's really what's happened with this money. We didn't know it was possible, but now that we know it's possible, you can't hold the market back once it starts. So we've entered into a new age, and this is very interesting for Americans in particular. Like, most people in the world are aware of competitive currencies. Like, you go to most countries, and there's 2 or 3 currencies you can use, Not in America. I mean, most Americans think there's only $1. They're not even aware there's a New Zealand dollar, an Australian dollar, a Canadian dollar, right? We're weird people, right? You know this. And so we're unaware. But now Americans are going to be newly socialized in the possibility of a different kind of money. And I think it's going to change everything. I don't think there's no going back. Once you've innovated something as remarkable as magic internet money, I don't think that history will ever be the same. The government's money monopoly is on its way out, and we're never going to go back to that world.
Chris, what are your thoughts on the next 10 years, your predictions? Is this changing perception of money going to be helping us? Is it just going to be co-opted by government? What do you see?
Oh, I definitely think it's helpful. I reiterate a point I made in our discussion the other day. In fact, this was Naomi's point. I'm stealing from her.
I agree with it already. Very well said, Chris.
But, today we've got no financial privacy, right? We have this very interesting dichotomy with people are very concerned about the government spying on their communications. And any encroachment on our communications, and everyone's all up in arms and ticked off. but the government spies on all of our finances, and not just government, but like our banks just sell our information. I mean, we've got no financial privacy at all, and everybody just kind of accepts this as this is just how the system works, and we don't equate financial privacy to our privacy with our communications. Like, we treat them differently for some reason. And if we have something like Facebook's coin becoming more ubiquitous, people are going to start saying, well, hey, I already know Facebook spies on all my communications and everything. Then now they're going to be spying on my finances. And it's like an in for us to say, well, wait a second, that's been happening all along. And so we can hopefully turn more people on to this idea that financial privacy is just as important and just as much something we need to fight for as our communication privacy is.
I definitely hope that that's
So
what
use
comes out
Bitcoin.
of this. Yeah, no, I think like privacy coins, Bitcoin, things that you don't necessarily have to attach to your name. I think that that's going to be helpful in changing people's perception of what money can be and how financial privacy is important. Yury.
I know that blockchain is here to stay, and cryptocurrencies will exist in 10 years, but in terms which one, we can say only with certain amount of certainty, which coin. You can buy here some beautiful gold coins, but is there a chance that there will be technology which will in 10 years make them worthless? I would say 10%, maybe something will be invented that gold will be not worth anything. Like Federal Reserve notes, every libertarian knows it can go away, so there's a certain chance. With Bitcoin, I'm agreeing with Tone Vays that probably there's a highest chance to stay on the top, but there's also competition, so I will give it, I don't know, 25% that it will be still a top one and its price will multiply. So it's risky investment. We don't know for sure, but I think Bitcoin will adopt more privacy. I think eventually once or twice block size will be doubled, and we will see more maturity, like as I said, in a way economists understand cryptocurrencies, in a way programists do it more secure, and in many other ways.
Vin?
So 10 years is, again, it's a short period of time. Really for me, this is something that I've decided it interests me more than anything I've ever worked in, or any field that I think about Bitcoin all the time, and I never want to stop. And there's so much to know. Chris knows what I'm talking about, and Tone knows what I'm talking about. He just thinks about it in a very different way than I happen to think about it. But 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, generations from now, the vision of Satoshi Nakamoto is still going to be present in finance, and it's already present in a lot more chains than Bitcoin BTC, even a lot that don't have the name of Bitcoin. And it's even, the vision itself is even, we're seeing present in things that we really wouldn't think were there, like Facebook coin. So it's not really about, at least for me, 10 years. 10 years from now, I think that obviously there's going to be incredible advances. But as fast as crypto moves, human beings, it still takes 9 months to create a human being, and it still is 20 years for a generation. And I think that it's very likely that it's going to be 2 or 3 or more generations. We're going to have some kids who are raised from birth, playing around and knowing that Bitcoin exists, I think, before this thing is really going to happen. And so 10 years, it's going to be, I think, great and a lot more advances, but I think really we're looking at a much longer time scale for this thing.
Tone, what are your thoughts? You've already said that you think that the government is going to be banning Bitcoin. Do you see Bitcoin still being around in 10 years? Do you think that is going to be the dominant currency?
Yeah, no, I still see it being around. It's just a fear of mine. I'm not saying that they will. We'll find out. Bitcoin will definitely be around, and that's why I only believe in Bitcoin. I only hold Bitcoin, because I think that's the only one that has a chance to fight against the government, because everything else, any other project, forget every other currency, every other project in general in the crypto space has a leader and a corporation and an office and people that could be coerced and gone after. The only one that can actually be resistant to government force is Bitcoin. And that's why I remain a Bitcoin believer, and I continue to hold my value in Bitcoin. And that's what I see for the next 10 years. I see a big battle, and the more people that just don't help Bitcoin, but try to help some other project instead, they're just diluting themselves and putting themselves at a bigger risk because they could be coerced. And those projects will be taken down if the government wants to take them down, all of them. So that's what's been disappointing me, is the fact that people aren't helping to make Bitcoin stronger, so when the hammer comes down, because they will take down all of those other ones. The ones they can't take down is Bitcoin. So the more you can help, the easier the fight will eventually be.
So the final, just as we're wrapping up, a question, and I'll start with you, Tone, is about privacy. So one problem that people see with Bitcoin is that it inherently lacks privacy. And the team, in order to, as you said, be very conservative and secure the network and make sure that it's the most decentralized thing possible, they've been very hesitant to make changes, add privacy layers, etc., which makes people, some people hopeful about some privacy coins out there. Do you see the potential that some of these privacy coins could take some of that market share?
Look, you can build the most private text messaging app in the world. If 10 people in the world are using it, you're not private, okay? What you need to do is you need to build privacy on the one thing that people are actually using. So all those people that are, building something private that only a dozen people in the world will use, you're not helping anyone, okay? You go and you help put privacy on Bitcoin. The reason why privacy is not a giant priority in Bitcoin, but it will be, is because the average person has not yet been at risk. The government has not yet gone after any normal citizens for using Bitcoin. Yes, they have gone after some people that have done bad stuff with Bitcoin, and in a way, it's a Trojan horse from the Bitcoin community to the government. Oh, see, Bitcoin is not private. Go ahead, you can catch the criminals. While under the hood, real privacy is being built. People think that the best privacy they can have is taking their Bitcoin, converting them to Monero, holding them in Monero for a few days, putting them back into Bitcoin. That's great. You're taking on a bunch of volatility and currency risk. Bitcoin has a side chain, it's called Liquid. You can convert Bitcoin into liquid Bitcoin, which still has the value of a Bitcoin. Leave them there for a few days, put them back into Bitcoin. The privacy is just as good. You have Wasabi Wallet, you have wallets, you have CoinJoin, Bulletproofs is going to be added, Schnorr is going to be added, just a couple of more soft forks, and Bitcoin will be maybe 98, 99% as private as the best privacy currency out there that thinks they're a competitor to Bitcoin. But if less than 1% of the people are using your privacy coin, you're not private at all. The government knows you're using it. They don't need an excuse.
Vin, do you see a future where we will have financial privacy? Do you think Bitcoin is going to play a large role in that?
I think it's an interesting question, but I think it's actually a moot point. That if there's a critical mass of people who are using Bitcoin, that actually the most important part for libertarians is the fact that it's unconfiscatable, or relatively unconfiscatable, especially as compared to the collusion between the banks and the government. As it stands right now, if you've got money in a bank account, all it takes is a letter from the IRS, and they're going to seize your bank account. And so what it really comes down to is, okay, fine, if there's 20 million people in the US who are all using Bitcoin and that's their main currency, they earn their income in that, and then they just decide that they're not going to file whatever taxes they have to file. Okay, really try and go expend the manpower for 20 million people to try to take their Bitcoin. It's just, it's not there. That's really what it's about. I think the privacy coins I think it's not what we should be pushing for. What we should be pushing for is to make it so that the privacy is really a moot point, and that's just a critical mass of people.
Yury.
Yeah, I agree. As I said, I agree that privacy will be added, and one of the value of Bitcoin that it's developed slowly. So that's good that we have this topic for 10 years, so it won't happen this month or next month, but eventually I think all leads in this direction. And it's interesting that even larger organizations, like more like established ones, financial, when they were thinking about cryptocurrencies, if they are obligated by law to keep privacy for their clients, they're saying, so how we will put it all on public blockchain? It doesn't work with the way we are set up. So maybe even some of them want more privacy from cryptocurrencies.
Yes.
Well, I mean, Tone just said an awful lot of stuff I disagree with, but look at that slide.
No. You're welcome to rebut some of it if you want.
But I'll just say, I mean, I think, I don't know, as far as privacy goes, it's interesting to experiment with different technologies and different coins. I think it's harder to add privacy in the Bitcoin than Tone just made it out to say. In fact, like his statement's kind of a little contradictory, like we're gonna add this in the Bitcoin, but yet nobody controls Bitcoin. So like, there's some contradictions there. But I think he's also overestimating the degree to which like Bitcoin has completely captured this entire market, yet it's the number one coin in terms of market share, but its market share is still only hovering just over 50%. There's still, it's not impossible that other coins that have better properties and better attributes could surpass it. It's still kind of very much in the infancy, and if you look around and say, you know, how much usage is Bitcoin getting versus all these other ones, at least in terms of medium of exchange, it's not much, right? It's not much of a difference between BTC and other ones.
No, that's a ridiculous statement.
The overall
that's
usage,
a ridiculous statement.
The overall usage is very tiny, right? Like if we compare, let's say, Bitcoin to the US dollar, it's not a drop in the bucket. And the fact that Bitcoin has 100%, 200%, 300% more of that drop in the bucket is still a drop in the bucket, okay? So there's still a lot of opportunity for other ones.
Are we talking about Bitcoin versus traditional currencies, or are we talking about Bitcoin within the crypto space? Because look, Bitcoin might only be 60% of the crypto market cap, but it's 99% of transactions. That's why they're expensive and slow that everyone complains about.
But those transactions are exchange transactions, dude. That's
No.
They're
They're actual usage transactions. Bitcoin is the 99% of all usage transactions. That's why you all complain why it's slow and expensive.
And how do you have this metric?
Reality.
But my point
No. How do you have a metric that you can tell the difference between that what the use case of a particular Bitcoin transaction is?
Someone buying something with it.
Tone,
And how does that? You can't see that on the blockchain, bro.
Where's your spreadsheet?
Tone, Bitcoin does 3 transactions a second. You mean to tell me that's not tiny?
They're actual transactions to buy shit. That's useful to your life.
Visa's doing 2,000 transactions a second. Bitcoin's doing 3. Like the opportunity is there for some other coin to come along and do 6 a second.
It doesn't matter if your cryptocurrency can do 8 gazillion transactions a second if no one is using it for real commerce.
So where is this additional real commerce that's with nobody's using any of the currencies, bro.
Bitcoin! People are using Bitcoin every day.
You do not have any evidence of this. You cannot look at a blockchain and say, oh, that's a pizza purchase. Oh, this guy bought shoes. Oh, that guy paid his employee. That is not how the Bitcoin blockchain works, and you know that. So you can't say what the use case is of any given transaction. You can say there's more transactions, and that's fine, but there's more trading of Bitcoin that's taking place.
Jeffrey's like, hey,
You're trying to convince me that using the euro in America is more useful than using the dollars. I can't prove to you that no one in America is paying with euros. The reality tells me that no one in America is using the euros. I don't need the government database to tell me that no one in America is using the euros. I live and breathe this space for 6 years. I know what cryptocurrencies people use for shit.
I've been in this space for longer than you. So I don't understand so what are you saying?
Alright,
So it seems that there's some disagreement here about usage. Maybe we can do
We've got
some...
like 5 minutes left, don't we?
actually,
Well,
we're out
I was
of
gonna,
time.
I was gonna
but-
say something. It's up to you guys. You guys can continue the
Patrick,
discussion.
please,
Yes.
give us your question.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say you guys can continue. It's up to the panelists. As long as you, we're good until at least 6:30, maybe even longer. So you guys, if you want to continue, it's up to you guys. If you-
Nice.
yeah.
Scale debate!
I didn't really have a big question to ask, but I'll just throw this out there, if with your permission, Naomi. Because as libertarians, we all believe in competition, and we want to see the best product win, and we're all for more businesses competing. But is there a difference with competition in terms of a business or a product or a service versus competition in terms of money? If we have a new and better service coming out every year, that actually improves the economy, improves everyone's lives. If we have a quote new or quote better money coming out every other week or every other year, isn't that disastrous, and doesn't that actually cause destruction, and that doesn't improve the economy? That was the question I had.
I would say absolutely not. And let me just, and you know what's interesting about your question? There's a kind of a deep theoretical presumption behind what you said, which is that money is a different kind of good from every other good, right? And a lot of people believe this, and I think it might be true in a pure mechanical model sense, like in a general equilibrium framework. Money is definitely a different kind of good than every other kind of good. But here's the thing. I'm not sure we know yet what money is. And that may sound like a strange thing to say, but the truth is for 100 years we thought money was a particular thing. We knew it was made by government, it was passed from hand to hand, it ran through central banks, and it was the means of payment, and that's it. What we didn't know is that it could also be a peer-to-peer means of payment living on a distributed network and so on. So we've added a whole nother layer to our understanding, our conception of the potential for what money can be, and I don't believe we're finished with that yet. And so you go back and read Carl Menger, what you find is that he had a conception of money as an entrepreneurial process. We're always discovering what it is or what it might be, and there's always some body out there promoting a new kind of money. Like, my money is better than your money, you should try my money. And so I think we've restarted this process in the 21st century with Bitcoin, and I think we're not anywhere near done with it yet. So that's why, so that's a long way of answering the question, is competition of monies destructive and not productive? I think it's productive. Why? Because we're not finished discovering what money is just yet. In fact, we've just barely started this process, again, for the first time in 100 years, maybe in 6,000 years, I don't know. But we're bringing technology and the market process to the discovery of what money is. And I don't think anybody should be so presumptuous as to believe that we now know what money is. I don't think we know just yet.
And if I may agree and expand, yes, competition is similar and competition is good, and we might even see different bitcoins. Like, there is a difference between Bitcoin and Bitcoin in your exchange account, and there will be Bitcoin on your Fidelity account, and maybe we will see bank accounts for Bitcoins. And some people were saying me, oh, Bitcoin cannot be inflated. But if you have fractional reserve Bitcoin account in your bank, then supply of Bitcoins may be, to a certain extent, be inflated.
I don't see any Dash t-shirts, I don't see any Dash banners, I don't see any Dash trucks. Is Dash being represented at Porcfest this year?
I think, yeah, I saw Joelle hanging around before. Someone there as well.
I don't, it's gonna disappear, right? I mean, again, all of these, I mean, look, you may think it's competition, but it's a couple of guys getting rich and paying other people to promote them to get more rich, okay? They're all, I'm sorry, like I know you guys, I know a lot of people think that I hold my money in Bitcoin, I want Bitcoin to win. I'm just trying to explain to people that the reason why no altcoin can supplant Bitcoin, because all of the other altcoins are companies. There is actual investors, there is creators, there is people at the front of the line that are printing money for themselves. And I don't want that to be the global money. It's just wrong.
Chris?
Tone, that's just not a true statement. I volunteer my time for free. I don't get paid to work on BCH.
Unfortunate.
And I mean, I can just speak for like BCH. We've got maybe 7 or 8 full-time developers.
BCH is a minor exception because BCH was a fork of Bitcoin. It wasn't created by one guy from scratch.
Okay. So we have exceptions to the rule.
One thing I'll add before I get to Max's question there. So Scott Stornetta, who cited 4 out of the 8 citations in the Bitcoin white paper, he has an interesting idea of blockchain. He was like an early inventor of like an early conception of blockchain. And he talks about how, like, it's very similar to what Jeffrey was just saying, how in the past, technology has really held back our understanding of money. You know, you can't, like, we thought of competing currencies as this thing where only one would win out, because you can't carry around a physical bag of gold and silver and copper and sand and seashells, and you just can't. So the best one is going to win out. But when you're dealing with a technology where it's not physical, and you could have like a wallet that's filled with all of these different things, I'm not sure I see a necessity for us to just head towards one money if they're all like very liquid, you can exchange them easily, and there's no physical limitation to you holding multiple.
But, you know, and it's not even just technological, it might be cultural. You know, like some people might rally around a coin that's like pro-weed, or some people might like Dogecoin. I know, don't laugh, Tone. Oh, you can laugh.
It's so fun.
But we don't know what money can be. We don't actually know why people might carry this money as versus that money. I like the idea that there will be as many monies as there is demand for different kinds of monies, and they may be technologically identical, but might have different brandings. I'm just saying we don't know, that's all.
Max.
We want it to do, so we need top-down planning and we need yelling about holding and buying and selling, okay, until it is strong enough that it can compete with fiat currency. Now, that to me is not necessarily a wrong argument, but did I summarize your argument wrong enough?
Well, there's no top-down planning. It's a decentralized open source code. But
there's collusion and there's yelling very loud on social media.
What are you proposing? What's a better solution? Go for it.
Letting competition bring the best money to the market to ultimately defeat fiat currency. I don't own any Bitcoin, so
Although I actually agree with you, Max, part of market competition is also advertising, PR, going on social media and promoting things.
Well, how am I supposed to take someone who's saying you have to help Bitcoin, not with a grain of salt, when they start talking about Bitcoin versus any other currency?
What old coins have you held over the years?
I've held none of them. I've never held a cryptocurrency in my life.
Can we change that at Porcfest? Can we send him his first crypto?
If I may add, like, I can have ideas that competition is good, but if I don't believe in IOTA, I can say to my friends, don't buy into it. I think it will be dead in 1-2 years. So there's nothing bad in believing in competition, but also saying that some of those projects are shit coins.
Question?
Love you, Tone.
What, Ernie?
Tone's a good friend. We've known each other a long time on the show because of my home, and frustrating as hell. So we have this conversation a lot. What I see in the space as a libertarian activist and an advocate for freedom, when Bitcoin came and it promised anonymity and speed and cheat, all the things that they promised, and then, well, it's pseudo-anonymous. So I had to look that up, and it meant not. You know, so I was looking forward with our pirate stuff that we're doing, the second letter of Captain Mark. It describes the features of a cryptocurrency that promotes freedom. It's a standard. And Bitcoin, it's wide adoption. They're looking for it to be like a line on the IRS form. I made this much, wide adoption. We got Uncle Sam permission. Then we're talking about, well, Facebook, they're going to have a currency. Of course they are. Everybody's going to do something. But to make the idea that it's a private company and that it's going to be, has its own interest, they're government. They're the same thing. They've been mapping out our social network and all these things forever. And the same with cryptocurrencies. They don't care what you say, how secret you are. They just want to know who you do it with. So now in a small percentage, they've mapped out all our networks. And then when you say, well, it's a private company and government prints it, and Jeffrey, I mean, come on. It's the Federal Reserve. These are private companies. Facebook will be the same way. They'll get the same sanction, the same approval, the same, let me finish. So the point is,
get to your question.
I need competition, and I thought it's the next 10 years of Bitcoin. So I'm looking for 10 years from now, is freedom going to get a voice? That's why the libertarian movement and voluntarist philosophy has never gone away. It never will. 10 years from now, we'll be screaming
So
to
is
the
your
future
question
that
in
we
10
were
years'
promised.
time, will Bitcoin get a voice?
Ernie, I'm with you. My view is this. Bitcoin is decentralized and people can help make it stronger. Everything else in the crypto space is centralized and the government can take them out or get them to be a Trojan horse for the space, because everything else other than Bitcoin is centralized. It has an office, it has a CEO, it has a structure, and that's why I don't like it. Now, our internet kind of sucks. It doesn't have enough privacy for us. You know, to me, if you're building a privacy altcoin, it's like building a private internet on the side that no one is going to use, instead of using your skill set to build privacy on top of the internet that everyone is using.
I have no doubt that the dollar will be the predominant asset that is in the reserve of the Libra, right? For now. But I don't know what happens in 5 years when the dollar loses its status as a world reserve currency, which I think is definitely going to happen if Trump keeps up his trade wars, because you can't both be a world reserve currency and then abandon the world trade. I mean, those are incompatible goals, and you're already seeing other trade blocs coalescing around continuing the beautiful progress of globalization of trade that we've seen over the last 20 years. Trump is bailing the US out of that. I think that endangers the dollar. If it comes right down to it, Facebook Libra will be a liquid coin through some means. And if they have the ability to put in their reserve assets something other than the dollar, I think they certainly will. So I don't believe that Zuckerberg is a loyal patriot, and saying that, I'm complimenting him.
So let's have these last three questions, and we'll just do quick answers, and then we'll have to end it there. Questions?
Tone, so I have more of a comment. Danny Panzella, why are you so angry, dude? It's gonna be okay. It's all gonna be okay.
It's passion.
The technology's there. If it's called BTC or BCH or DASH, who gives a shit?
Because I care about people.
It's evolving.
Because I
just let it flow.
Because I care about. I care about people not I care about people not losing their life savings in BitConnect, and I think that altcoins are no different than BitConnect. I'm sorry for caring about people's life savings.
Just try and center your chi, man, so that you just don't get so. It's in Toltec wisdom, that's called a level 5.
I'm the one that's gonna pay taxes for those people when they start to sue the creators of those altcoins.
I think that was more of a troll than a question. But I think, this is very personal to a lot of people. This is about freedom, this is about their future, and they believe that money, private money, and uncensorable money is the best way to get there. So I understand why there's huge amounts of passion, and I think this panel has done incredibly well at, having civil discussion about this, considering the very diverse opinions here. Let's get to our final question here.
I actually have a question.
2 questions from that.
So it's a short question. I'd like to hear from the whole panel, if I could, real short answers. Starting with Tone and going down. When was the last time you spent a cryptocurrency on a purchase of something? And which crypto was it, and what did you purchase?
About an hour ago, I bought bulletproof coffee for $5, and I paid I think a 20 or a 25 cent fee. I should check if it already cleared, but it'll definitely clear by tomorrow.
I'm pretty much buying things. I haven't bought anything here yet, but it's always BCH. Yesterday I bought something on Purse. It's always Bitcoin Cash for me.
I will also add that unless you think I'm going to spend $18 million to get my $5 back, they'll get the $5. In order for I spent $5. I paid a 20 or a 25-cent fee. It may take a day for them to be able to respend it, but unless you think I'm gonna spend $18 million trying to double spend that transaction, they will get it, because a credit card could be double spent for like 30 days to 90 days out.
Now, did they know for sure that you didn't put the replace by fee flag on there, because that might not be the case with BTC?
All right, but wait, he wants his answers as well.
I will skip it. It's private question.
BCH buying some food out there.
Yeah, BCH 2 weeks ago buying some service. It was a book cover creation, and the creator only wanted BCH. That's it. In fact, I don't use anything but BCH in practice. That's not as a matter of principle, but that's what I use. Because it's fast and it's cheap and it's wonderful. That's all.
Final question. Actually, we could probably fit in two, but we'll make them quick.
This is more of a comment than a question, and thank you guys for having the panel. It was very interesting. I wanted to comment on Facebook and their Libra coin, because one of the things that I find most, I would say, troubling about the crypto space is that it's very geared towards technical users, and it's not very intuitive for people who are new to the space. And I think that people who are more technically inclined could learn a lot from whatever Facebook decides to do, because they're so consumer focused. They're also, I guess, with whoever they're selling users, they're also focused on them, but they're very consumer focused. And I think that developers or people who develop apps for people to use cryptocurrencies can learn from how they market and how their user interface is worked out over time. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, I may even have been Vin who said that Facebook was probably going to help us figure out what the user experience is supposed to look like. Because up until this point, we're doing a terrible job on user experience in the cryptocurrency.
Yeah, they're gonna spend a ton of capital to do the type of work that is the expensive design. We've been missing designers.
No, but and one of the reasons, and you're exactly right, but I think one of the reasons our user interfaces suck so badly right now is that, and they're getting better, is that we've spent so many resources and time complying with the GD regulations that we haven't been thinking about the customer. I don't think that's the crypto space's fault. I think that's the trolls in the government that have been annoying the hell out of us for 10 years.
The next question.
Sorry, could I just add that I actually don't like Facebook's Libra coin at all, but I think that's something that could be.
I think we're in agreement on that for the most part.
I think the Libra coin is better for most of the third world than their local currencies. If Facebook ever actually gets it running.
Right, if the government lets them do it.
Even if it's grossly technologically inefficient, because they don't know what a blockchain is.
Final question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the value of money comes down to its cost of production. So that's possible in Bitcoin, and I don't know to what extent in Ether. And that's basic economics. Eventually, the value of money comes down to cost of production.
Isn't that labor theory of value index?
Whether it's Germany, Zimbabwe, or Venezuela, we have seen they keep printing money if they have. So, which cryptocurrency does that make? If there's a basic economics, so which cryptocurrency needs that definition?
I have to disagree with that statement. The value of money comes from people's confidence in that money.
Right.
And this is why the US dollar is the world reserve currency, because the world has most confidence that the US government is the most responsible government in the world on a large scale in not printing too much money. And Bitcoin, I believe, will be the next most confident thing. Like, I am very happy to hold my savings in Bitcoin. I will not hold my savings in any other crypto I think I would rather hold, the Venezuelan currency longer than I would hold an altcoin. That's how it is for me. Because to me, they're about the same. They're gonna go down to zero and they're all the same.
Chris, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe I could rephrase your question, but normally in markets, as stuff is produced and as the supply goes up, the price ends up falling and it tends to settle at the cost of production. Is that kind of what you're suggesting? Okay.
Yeah, that was the only reason that gold was the medium of exchange for a very, very long time, because the cost of production was stable over across the world.
So the way these cryptocurrencies are working is the protocol.
BTC works because the cost of production is very high. If it was very low, the price would be very low.
Well, the cost of production, it's set by the protocol,
the moment
right?
the cost of production BTC goes down, many miners come in. So the cost of production almost matches the value of the Bitcoin.
Okay.
Hey guys, don't underestimate the Venezuelan paper currency. That will make awesome gifts one day. But when your blockchain completely disappears because nobody has a node, there's not even a collectible left.
Nice final words there. Well, a huge thank you to our panelists here. This has been a wonderful discussion. I've really appreciated your time. And could you just give them a round of applause for being here?
And a round of applause for Naomi, please. Round of applause for Naomi.
No fisticuffs either. I'm not sure whether I'm glad or disappointed.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.